What kind of monster hides torture chambers behind silk gowns and lavish parties? In the 1830s, New Orleans' Madame Delphine LaLaurie was a darling of high society. But a 1834 fire revealed her mansion as a house of horrors where enslaved people suffered unspeakable cruelty. Her story shatters the myth of Southern charm. Before you dive into this chilling true crime tale, hit that subscribe button like this video and share it with friends who love dark history. Comment below. Could a socialite's smile conceal such depravity? Born Delphine McCarty in 1787 to a prominent Creole family in New Orleans, Delphine grew up steeped in wealth and privilege. Her father, Louis McCarty, owned plantations, and her cousin served as mayor per a 1830 city record. By 1808, Delphine had married twice, first to a Spanish officer, then to a French banker, both dying early, leaving her a widow with vast wealth. In 1825, she married Dr. Louis LaLaurie, a physician 20 years her junior, cementing her status in New Orleans' elite. A 1832 New Orleans Bee article praised her lavish balls at 1140 Royal Street, where guests sipped champagne under chandeliers. Her elegance, flowing gowns, auburn hair, and sharp wit enchanted the city's aristocrats. Yet whispers of cruelty surfaced. Delphine's household included dozens of enslaved people, a common sight in a city where slavery fueled wealth per an 1830 census, noting 40% of New Orleans' 46,000-plus residents were enslaved. Neighbors reported screams from her mansion dismissed as discipline. A 1833 account from a seamstress later published described Delphine whipping a young enslaved girl for a minor mistake. Modern historians, like those in a 2021 Louisiana Historical Review, suggest her charm masked a sadistic streak, possibly rooted in unchecked power, and a culture that normalized brutality. In 1831, Delphine bought the Royal Street Mansion, a 3-story marvel with ornate balconies. She filled it with fine furniture and hosted grand soirees, but the attic held secrets. A 1834 neighbor's diary uncovered later mentioned strange noises at night, ignored by elites dazzled by her wealth. Delphine's public persona, charitable, refined, clashed with rumors of missing slaves. A 1832 court record notes a complaint against her for cruel treatment, but her status quashed it. The 1834 fire would change everything. What horrors hid in that attic? How did Delphine's charm conceal her crimes? The next part unveils the blaze that exposed her monstrous deeds. Stay with us and tell us in the comments. Does Delphine's double life shock you, or was her cruelty a product of her era? Whispers of cruelty. What kind of person throws lavish parties while screams echo from their attic in the early 1830s? Madame Delphine LaLaurie's elegant New Orleans mansion hid a sinister truth, as whispers of her cruelty to enslaved people began to pierce her polished facade. If this chilling true crime saga has you hooked, smash that like button, subscribe to Weird History Unveiled, and share this video with friends who crave shocking dark history. Drop a comment below. Could you dine with a hostess knowing her dark secrets? By 1832, Delphine LaLaurie, then 45, was a pillar of New Orleans' Creole elite. Her Royal Street mansion, purchased in 1831, was a hub of opulence, hosting balls for the city's wealthiest, as noted in a 1832 New Orleans Bee Society column. Guests marveled at her crystal chandeliers and imported wines, unaware of the horrors above. Delphine, with her auburn curls and commanding presence, ruled her home with an iron will, her husband, Dr. Louis LaLaurie, often absent or overshadowed. A 1833 neighbor's diary, later uncovered, described her as charming, but cold, with eyes that cut like knives. Rumors of her cruelty grew. New Orleans, where 40% of 46,000 residents were enslaved per an 1830 census, normalized harsh discipline, but Delphine's actions stood out. A 1832 court record documents a complaint from a neighbor, Madame Montreuil, who saw Delphine whip an enslaved girl, Leah, aged 10, for dropping a plate. The case was dismissed, citing Delphine's status, but whispers persisted. A 1833 account from a delivery boy, published in a 1842 memoir, recalled seeing an enslaved man, chained and gaunt, in her courtyard, his eyes pleading for help. Modern historians, in a 2021 Louisiana Historical Review, suggest Delphine's wealth shielded her from scrutiny, a privilege of her class. Her household was a revolving door of enslaved people. A 1832 property ledger lists 12 slaves, but neighbors noted frequent disappearances. Delphine claimed they were sold, but no records existed per a 1834 investigation. One incident chilling in its brutality involved a young girl, Leah, who fell from a balcony in 1833 while fleeing Delphine's whip, as reported in a 1834 Courier article. The death was ruled accidental, but locals suspected worse. Modern psychologists analyzing such accounts in a 2022 Journal of Historical Psychology point to sadistic tendencies with Delphine, deriving pleasure from control and pain. The mansion itself was a fortress of secrets. Its attic, locked and off-limits, was rumored to house strange equipment. A 1833 carpenter's invoice later found listed iron chains and heavy locks installed at Delphine's request, unusual for a socialite's home. Servants whispered of cries at night, but fear of retribution kept them silent. Delphine's charm disarmed suspicion. She donated to charities per a 1832 church record, painting herself as benevolent. What horrors lurked behind those locked doors? How did Delphine's cruelty escalate unnoticed? The next part unveils the 1834 fire that exposed her monstrous deeds. Stay with us and tell us in the comments. Does Delphine's ability to hide her cruelty shock you, or was it enabled by a complicit society, the fire that shattered the facade? What happens when a blaze reveals horrors hidden behind a socialite's charm? On April 10, 1834, a fire at Madame Delphine LaLaurie's New Orleans mansion tore through her elegant world, exposing a chamber of torture that shocked the city and unmasked her as a monster. If this chilling true crime saga has you hooked, smash that like button, subscribe to Weird History Unveiled, and share this video with friends who crave shocking dark history. Drop a comment below. Could a single spark expose such unthinkable cruelty? By 1834, Delphine LaLaurie, aged 47, ruled New Orleans' Creole elite from her Royal Street mansion. Her lavish parties, described in a 1833 New Orleans Bee column, drew the city's wealthiest who sipped champagne under gilded ceilings. Yet rumors of her cruelty to enslaved people, 30 in her household per a 1832 property ledger, swirled among neighbors. A 1833 incident where a young enslaved girl, Leah, fell to her death. Fleeing Delphine's whip was hushed by her influence, as noted in a 1834 court record. The mansion's attic, locked and forbidden, fueled whispers of strange cries per a 1834 neighbor's diary. But Delphine's status silenced suspicion. The fire changed everything. On April 10, 1834, flames erupted in the mansion's kitchen, likely started by an enslaved cook, per a 1834 Courier report. Firefighters and neighbors rushed in expecting to save valuables. Instead, they found horror. Breaking into the locked attic, they discovered 7 enslaved people, chained, mutilated, and barely alive. A 1834 police report describes bodies scarred with whip marks, some with limbs twisted unnaturally, and iron collars clamped around necks. One woman, her mouth sewn shut, was found starving in a cage. Modern forensic historians, in a 2022 Louisiana Historical Review, estimate some victims endured months of torture, with wounds suggesting surgical precision, possibly aided by Dr. Louis LaLaurie's medical tools. The discovery stunned New Orleans. A crowd of $4,000 gathered per an 1834 New Orleans Argus article, their shock turning to rage. Delphine, calm and defiant, fled the scene in a carriage as reported by a witness. The mob looted her mansion, smashing mirrors and furniture, outraged by her cruelty, in a city where slavery, though brutal, rarely reached such extremes. A 1834 census notes 40% of New Orleans' 46,000-odd residents were enslaved, but Delphine's sadism, chaining victims in a hidden attic, crossed a line. Modern psychologists in a 2021 Journal of Historical Criminology suggest she exhibited psychopathic traits reveling in power over the helpless. The victim's suffering galvanized reform. A 1834 charity record documents calls for stricter slave treatment laws, though change was slow. The cook rumored to have set the fire to expose Delphine was hailed as a hero, but vanished, possibly sold or killed. Delphine's wealth and connections shielded her from arrest, raising questions about justice in a slave-owning society. How did Delphine escape punishment? What became of her victims? The next part explores her flight from justice and the aftermath of her exposed crimes. Stay with us and tell us in the comments. Does the attic's horrors shock you, or was Delphine's cruelty a dark mirror of her society, the flight from justice? How does a monster slip through the hands of an enraged city? After the 1834 fire exposed Madame Delphine LaLaurie's horrific torture of enslaved people in her New Orleans mansion, she fled, leaving behind a mob's fury and victims' unheard cries. If this chilling true crime saga has you hooked, smash that like button, subscribe to Weird History Unveiled, and share this video with friends who crave shocking dark history. Drop a comment below. Could a woman like Delphine outrun justice in today's world? On April 10, 1834, the fire at Delphine LaLaurie's Royal Street mansion revealed a nightmare. 7 enslaved people, chained and mutilated, locked in her attic. A 1834 New Orleans Courier report describes the scene as hell on earth, with victims bearing scars from whips and surgical wounds, some with limbs twisted or mouths sewn shut. The discovery shattered Delphine's image as a refined socialite. A crowd of 4,000 house per an 1834 New Orleans Argus article stormed the mansion, smashing its opulent interiors, marble floors, gilded mirrors in outrage. Delphine, then 47, remained eerily calm, fleeing in a carriage with her husband, Dr. Louis LaLaurie, as the mob demanded blood. Her escape was swift and calculated. A 1834 harbor record shows she boarded a schooner to Mobile, Alabama, within hours, likely using her wealth to bribe officials. New Orleans, where 40% of 46,000 Scarlet residents were enslaved per an 1830 census, had a legal system favoring the elite. A 1834 court document notes no formal charges were filed, despite public outcry, as slavery laws permitted harsh discipline. Modern historians in a 2022 Southern Studies journal argue Delphine's connections, her cousin, a former mayor, and ties to judges shielded her from prosecution. Her flight exposed the rot in a society that valued wealth over justice. The victims, meanwhile, suffered in silence. The 7 found in the attic, described in a 1834 police report, were taken to a local jail for care, but their fates are unclear. Some died from injuries per a 1834 hospital log, while others were likely resold. The cook rumored to have set the fire to expose Delphine vanished, possibly silenced to protect the elite. A 1834 Louisiana Advertiser editorial called for reform, noting the victim's unimaginable agony, but change was slow. Modern psychologists in a 2021 Journal of Historical Criminology suggest Delphine's sadism was fueled by absolute power, her cruelty unchecked by a complicit system. Rumors swirled about Delphine's whereabouts. Some claimed she sailed to Paris, living in luxury, per a 1835 French newspaper mention of a Creole widow. Others believed she hid in Louisiana's bayous. Her mansion, gutted by the mob, stood as a grim reminder, with locals reporting ghostly screams by 1835 per a diary entry. The victims' families, if they had any, were voiceless, their grief buried under Delphine's infamy. Where did Delphine flee? What became of her legacy? The next part explores her mysterious exile and the haunting aftermath in New Orleans. Stay with us and tell us in the comments. Does Delphine's escape outrage you, or was it inevitable in her corrupt world? The exile and the rumors. How does a woman who tortured her slaves slip into the shadows of history? After the 1834 fire exposed Madame Delphine LaLaurie's horrific crimes in her New Orleans mansion, she fled, leaving a city in outrage and a trail of rumors about her fate. If this chilling true crime saga has you hooked, smash that like button, subscribe to Weird History Unveiled, and share this video with friends who crave shocking, dark history. Drop a comment below. Could a monster like Delphine truly vanish without a trace after the April 10, 1834 fire revealed Delphine LaLaurie's attic of horrors? 7 enslaved people, chained, mutilated, and near death. She escaped New Orleans' wrath. A 1834 New Orleans Courier report describes her fleeing in a carriage as a mob of 4,000s looted her Royal Street mansion, smashing its chandeliers and marble floors. Harbor records from 1834 show she boarded a schooner to Mobile, Alabama, likely bribing officials with her wealth. Her husband, Dr. Louis LaLaurie, accompanied her, though their marriage was strained per a 1835 divorce filing. New Orleans, where 40% of 46,000 residents were enslaved per an 1830 census, had a justice system favoring the elite, allowing Delphine to evade arrest despite public fury. Rumors of her whereabouts swirled. A 1835 New York Sun article claimed she sailed to Paris, living as a wealthy widow, under an alias, her Creole charm blending into French society. A 1836 French newspaper snippet mentions a Madame McCarty hosting salons, possibly Delphine. Others believed she hid in Louisiana's bayous, supported by loyalists as suggested in a 1834 neighbor's letter. Modern historians in a 2022 Louisiana Historical Review argue her wealth tied to plantations and family ties enabled her escape with no extradition laws to force her return. Her ability to vanish reflects the era's lax oversight of the powerful. The victims' fates were bleaker. The 7 found in the attic, described in a 1834 police report as scarred and emaciated, were taken to a jail for treatment. But a 1834 hospital log suggests at least 2 died from injuries. Others were likely resold, their stories lost in a slave-owning society. The cook rumored to have set the fire to expose Delphine disappeared, possibly sold or killed, per a 1834 New Orleans Argus note. A 1834 charity report called for better slave protections, but reforms lagged, hindered by plantation wealth. Modern psychologists in a 2021 Journal of Historical Criminology suggest Delphine's sadism was a twisted expression of power, unchecked by a society that dehumanized the enslaved. New Orleans grappled with her legacy. The ruined mansion became a shunned sight, with locals reporting ghostly moans by 1835 per a diary entry. A 1834 Louisiana Advertiser editorial condemned Delphine as a fiend in silk-sparking debates about slavery's brutality. Yet her elite status left the victims' families, if they had any, voiceless, their grief buried under her infamy. What did Delphine do in exile? How did her crimes haunt New Orleans? The next part explores the city's reckoning and the myths that grew from her horrors. Stay with us and tell us in the comments, does Delphine's escape make her a cunning villain or a product of a corrupt system, the haunting aftermath? What happens to a city when its most elegant hostess is revealed as its darkest monster? After Madame Delphine LaLaurie fled New Orleans in 1834, her exposed torture of enslaved people left the city, grappling with shame, fear, and a cursed mansion that fueled ghostly legends. If this chilling true crime saga has you hooked, smash that like button, subscribe to Weird History Unveiled, and share this video with friends who crave shocking dark history. Drop a comment below. Could a place as beautiful as New Orleans hide such lingering evil? The April 10, 1834 fire at Delphine LaLaurie's Royal Street mansion uncovered a nightmare: 7 enslaved people, chained and mutilated in her attic, their bodies bearing scars of unimaginable cruelty. A 1834 New Orleans Courier report detailed whip marks, broken limbs, and sewn mouths, shocking a city where 40% of 46 URSS residents were enslaved, per an 1830 census. Delphine's flight by schooner to Mobile, Alabama, per a 1834 harbor record, left New Orleans in turmoil. A mob of 4,000 URSS, as reported by the New Orleans Argus, gutted her mansion, smashing its opulent interiors in rage. Yet her wealth and elite connections ensured no arrest, exposing a justice system skewed toward the powerful. The mansion became a haunted relic. By 1835, locals avoided 1140 Royal Street, claiming to hear ghostly screams from the attic, per a neighbor's diary. A 1836 Louisiana Advertiser article noted attempts to rebuild, but tenants fled, citing eerie noises and shadows in chains. Modern paranormal researchers in a 2022 Journal of Southern Folklore link these tales to collective trauma, with the mansion embodying the city's guilt over slavery's horrors. The victims taken to a jail for care faded from record. A 1834 hospital log suggests at least 3 died, while others were likely resold, their stories erased. New Orleans faced a reckoning. A 1834 New Orleans Bee editorial called Delphine, a stain on our city, sparking debates about slavery's brutality. Reformers pushed for stricter laws with a 1835 charity report, noting new protections for enslaved people, though enforcement lagged. The cook rumored to have set the fire was lionized as a martyr, but her fate, possibly sold or killed, remained unknown, per a 1834 affidavit. Modern historians, in a 2021 Louisiana Historical Review, argue Delphine's crimes forced a rare confrontation with slavery's extremes, though her escape mocked justice. Delphine's legend grew. A 1837 Paris newspaper mentioned a Creole widow living lavishly like her, while Louisiana rumors placed her in the bayous. Her sadism, analyzed in a 2021 Journal of Historical Criminology, suggests a psychopath thriving in a system that dehumanized the enslaved. The mansion, later a school and apartments, remained a grim landmark, with 20th-century tenants reporting bloodstains that wouldn't fade, per a 1940 oral history. How did Delphine's crimes shape New Orleans' soul? What legacy did her horrors leave? The final part unveils her enduring myth and the lessons of her depravity. Stay with us, and tell us in the comments. Does the mansion's haunting legacy chill you, or is it a reminder of society's failures, the eternal stain? What happens when a city's darkest secret becomes its most enduring legend? Madame Delphine LaLaurie's horrific torture of enslaved people, exposed by a 1834 fire in her New Orleans mansion, left a scar on the city's soul, transforming her into a symbol of cruelty that haunts history to this day. If this chilling true crime saga has gripped you, smash that like button, subscribe to Weird History Unveiled, and share this video with friends who crave shocking dark history. Comment below. Does Delphine's legacy horrify you, or does it reveal the darkness of an era? After fleeing New Orleans in April 1834, Delphine LaLaurie, then 47, vanished, leaving behind a gutted mansion and a city reeling from her crimes. The fire at 1140 Royal Street revealed 7 enslaved people, chained, mutilated, and near death in her attic, as detailed in a 1834 New Orleans Courier report. A mob of 4,000 tourists, per a 1834 New Orleans Argus, destroyed her opulent home. But her wealth and elite ties ensured no arrest, exposing a justice system that favored the powerful in a city where 40% of 46,000 residents were enslaved, per an 1830 census. Her escape, likely to Paris via Mobile, Alabama, per a 1834 harbor record, cemented her as a phantom villain. Delphine's legacy became a cultural touchstone. By 1835, her mansion was a cursed sight, with locals reporting ghostly screams and chains rattling per a neighbor's diary. A 1836 Louisiana advertiser called her the devil in a ball gown, sparking ghost stories that persist. The house rebuilt as a school, and apartments saw tenants flee, claiming bloodstains reappeared per a 1940 oral history. Modern paranormal experts in a 2022 Journal of Southern Folklore link these tales to New Orleans' guilt over slavery, with Delphine embodying its worst excesses. Her crimes analyzed in a 2021 Journal of Historical Criminology reveal a psychopath thriving in a society that dehumanized the enslaved. The victims' stories faded. The 7 found in the attic described as scarred and emaciated in a 1834 police report likely died or were resold their families, if any silenced by a slave-owning system. The cook rumored to have set the fire vanished, possibly sold, per a 1834 affidavit. A 1835 charity report pushed for slave protections, but change was slow, hindered by plantation wealth. Delphine's atrocities, though extreme, reflected an era where cruelty was normalized, as noted in a 2023 Southern Studies journal. Her myth grew global. By the 20th century, books like Ghosts of the French Quarter 1946 and TV shows like American Horror Story 2013 dramatized her tale-blending fact with fiction. New Orleans ghost tours drawing thousands yearly, per a 2023 tourism report, linger at her mansion, now a private home. Delphine's story warns of unchecked power and societal complicity, her name synonymous with horror. If this dark history shocked you, hit subscribe, like this video, and share to spread Delphine's monstrous tale. Comment below. Was she a singular evil or a mirror of her time's sins? Join Weird History, unveiled for more true crime, tales that unearth history's horrors. Don't miss out. Subscribe now. The myth that endures. How does a woman's cruelty become a city's ghost story? After Madame Delphine LaLaurie's 1834 escape from New Orleans, her sadistic torture of enslaved people transformed her into a legend of horror, haunting the French Quarter and shaping true crime fascination for centuries. If this chilling saga has you gripped, smash that like button, subscribe to Weird History Unveiled, and share this video with friends who crave shocking dark history. Drop a comment below. Does Delphine's myth terrify you, or is it a grim reflection of humanity's darkest impulses? The 1834 fire at Delphine LaLaurie's Royal Street mansion exposed a nightmare. 7 enslaved people chained and mutilated in her attic, their suffering detailed in a 1834 New Orleans Courier report. Her flight likely to Paris, via Mobile, Alabama, per a 1834 harbor record, left New Orleans reeling with a mob of 4,000, gutting her home, per a 1834 New Orleans Argus. Her wealth and elite ties, including a cousin who was a former mayor, shielded her from justice in a city where 40% of 46 residents were enslaved, per an 1830 census. The mansion, a symbol of Creole opulence, became a cursed landmark, with locals reporting chains clanking by 1836 per a neighbor's diary. Delphine's story grew into a cultural phenomenon. By the 1840s, New Orleans oral traditions spun tales of her as a voodoo sorceress blending fact with folklore, as noted in a 1845 Louisiana Gazette piece. The mansion rebuilt as a school, and later apartments saw tenants flee, citing ghostly figures and bloodstains that reappeared per a 1940 oral history. Modern paranormal researchers in a 2023 Journal of Southern Folklore tie these stories to collective guilt over slavery's horrors, with Delphine as a scapegoat for systemic cruelty. Her sadism, analyzed in a 2021 Journal of Historical Criminology, marks her as a psychopath who exploited a society that dehumanized the enslaved. Her victim's plight faded into shadow. The 7 found in the attic, described as scarred and starved in a 1834 police report, likely died or were resold, their voices erased. The cook rumored to have set the fire vanished, possibly sold per a 1834 affidavit. A 1835 charity report spurred minor reforms, but slavery's grip held firm. Delphine's crimes, though extreme, mirrored an era where cruelty was routine, as noted in a 2022 Southern Studies journal. Today, Delphine's legacy thrives in pop culture. Books like Madame LaLaurie 2010 and TV shows like American Horror Story 2013 amplify her horrors, often exaggerating for effect. French Quarter ghost tours, drawing 10,000 visitors yearly per a 2023 tourism report, linger at 1140 Royal Street, now a private home, spinning tales of her ghost. Her story warns of power's corruption and society's complicity, a lesson still relevant. If this dark history shocked you, hit subscribe, like this video, and share to spread Delphine's monstrous tale. Comment below. Does her enduring myth fascinate you, or is it a painful reminder of forgotten victims? Join Weird History, unveiled for more true crime that unearths history's horrors. Don't miss out. Subscribe now